They Say What They Can't Radio.
Welcome to SoulShare, a conversation focused on love, intimacy, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. This is a different kind of relationship dialogue for those who want to make the shift from the ego-driven to more intimate, spirit-nurturing partnerships that satisfy. Because that's what Black love is. Black love is powerful. Black love is soulful. Black love is a love that you can feel. Give thanks. Greetings, this is Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and welcome to SoulShare. This evening, I have...
Harvey.
Yes, my brother. So tonight, we're going to be discussing the Netflix docuseries, Who Killed Malcolm X? And we've already had conversations about this, you and I, Kent.
Yep.
Hours and hours and hours, and I had to stop you from talking to me about it today, and I said, you know what, save it for in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. So, what were your takeaways?
Oh, man. I had a few. I'd say the first one was just his vibe, his energy at the end. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it looked like he was really beat down, and I mean, it was just sad to see him like that, you know? Because, like, if you only read in the history books or, you know, heard older people say quotes of Malcolm X, you think of him as this really strong, powerful, you know, like, there was no stopping him, you know? But in watching it, you got to see the humanity and, you know, some of the brokenness, you know, It was kind of tough, you know, because like all the stuff, like we talked about it before.
Right.
The facts of it, I already knew. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't like something that made me say, oh my God, like really? Mm-hmm. But just seeing him at the end, his body language, it just it made me kind of sad, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know,
he was
like,
so vulnerable and defeated.
He was in a bad space.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel a lot of it comes with his upbringing and being an orphan and, you know, going through a rough childhood. Mm-hmm. That when the nation took him in and built him up, he finally felt like he had family. Mm-hmm. You know, he had people who had his back. And that allowed all the positivity and all the leadership and all the things about him to shine. Mm-hmm. But the same is true as when they removed themselves from him, then you got to see all that vulnerability and the fact that he was lost and he wasn't really as ready as he thought he was. And, you know, like you got to see the person.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because when they did, you know, the interviews and talking to everybody, it's like there was a lot of hero worship when it came to Elijah Muhammad, and they really, you know, made it a point to say that the relationship between Malcolm and Elijah Muhammad was like a father-son type of thing. And then to have your father, the person I guess that you would look to as a hero, you know, turn their back on you as I guess as a man. And, you know, and Malcolm was really, really young, you know, for, you know, that person that you get guidance from, the very thing that you look to your father to give you turns their back on you. That must be hard, and you know,
especially
hard for a
when
man.
you didn't have it before.
Yeah.
See, if that's the only thing you ever had, and then it abandons you, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. You know, so that was something that stood out to me. Another thing that stood out to me was he probably didn't hang around long enough. Like he took a very emotionally immature stance that led him to be kind of outcast, you know? Like if he had hung around for the next lesson maybe, because Elijah Muhammad was actually bringing him along slowly.
Right.
Because I believe that Elijah Muhammad saw in Malcolm what he wished he himself had. So I guess he figured if I could take what I know and implanted in this young man who has the charisma, he has that voice that people want to follow, and install that in him, he'd be even greater than me. You know what I mean? But I think along the way, Malcolm got kind of full of himself a little bit. Like, you know, I guess you could say like a father son, you know, like when you're like 16, 17 and you got your chest out a little bit, you know, and dad's like, it ain't just all about that, son. You know what I mean? Like,
So how come that situation can't be resolved in a different, like that dynamic can't
it can, but I don't think, I think there was two things at play. I think one, at a certain point, Elijah Muhammad was probably a little jealous of the spotlight and the attention that Malcolm X was getting, like it was taking away from his shine. But I also think that on Malcolm's side, he wasn't mature enough or ready enough for the step that he thought he wanted to take. You know?
Right.
So it's like, to me, Malcolm wanted to be that guy. You know what I mean? It's just, he didn't have the tactics. He didn't understand the game. He was a great player, but he didn't understand the game.
So a question, so I'm going to divert for a little bit.
Okay.
But with you saying that, and, you know, Malcolm X was in, you know, during this time, like his mid to late 30s. Like, and you say that he didn't have the emotional intelligence and the emotional maturity.
Right.
Why is it taking our brothers so long to get that?
Look at his beginnings. Look where he started. He didn't start from like a level place where, you know, most other ethnicities would start. He started as a foster child. Some people in their entire life never get over that one hurdle. So he started there. Then on top of that, he got into all the other stuff, getting locked up. And I mean, that's really what led him to Elijah Muhammad, the fact that he was in prison. You know what I mean? So it wasn't fair for him out the starting blocks. It wasn't like, you know, he started off where he got this family and they live in this, you know, house where it's just him and his brother or him and his sister, and his parents both have jobs, and, you know, like they're this whole nice family. He started off in a really bad spot. Yeah,
because and that's one of the things that I like to focus on with this show is emotional intelligence, and I realize that is a huge issue, like, you know, within our community, that we're very overly emotional and we don't know, you know, how to balance our emotions with critical thinking.
Right.
And so it's clear that that's what Elijah Muhammad's his issue was. It was just, you know, with the incident that happened out in California, and it was just like when Malcolm wanted to, you know, just retaliate, and it was just like, we have to think critically about this.
But that was the thing that sparked it. But the turning point was when Elijah Muhammad told him, don't speak on it. It's one thing where you have in your mind the strategy that you want to employ. It's another thing when someone's telling you, okay, I understand your strategy, and that's in your head, which is fine, because you could think just about anything, but you got to control the narrative and the perception, right? So even if you're thinking something crazy, that's where that experience comes in. And he warned him before it even happened. He said, bro, just don't say anything. Don't say nothing positive about, actually it was about the Kennedy assassination.
Right. Okay.
Not about the Muslim that got killed.
Okay.
That was another thing too. But what I'm talking about is when John F. Kennedy got assassinated, Elijah Muhammad told him, bro, don't say anything positive, don't say anything negative, just don't say anything. Don't have anything to say. Because he knew that whatever was said in that moment mattered tremendously, because everybody, including enemies and guys who were on their side as well, they were looking to see what his response was going to be. So Elijah Muhammad, being a person who already been through it and knew the play,
Right.
he told him, bro, just don't talk. and we'll be fine.
What does that sound like? What does that remind you of?
I mean, that's the thing. He just, to me, if he had just relaxed, it's like us in any other moment. Like sometimes you be in a situation with whoever. It could be a family member, a dude on the street. If you just really think about what's at stake instead of just the moment, you'll be fine. But the moment where you overreact or you let your emotions get the best of you, it always turns out bad.
And and to kind of actually, it kind of crosses what was going on with Gayle King and Snoop, and all of these things was happening. The documentary came out while all of this, all of those things was exploding, and I definitely saw the parallels,
Right.
between the situations, and
Right.
it was when you look at the response of our community to it, then you also see the lack of emotional intelligence within our community
Right.
when even with their stance and the support of Snoop, and then how the people responding to his response, they was taking it even a step further. And
Right.
I don't know if you saw it yesterday, the interview with Snoop and at the Red Table Talk with
I
Jada
didn't see
Pinkett
it,
Smith.
but
That
I saw like the preview.
right. So that came out, and then that even upset because now that show also centers around healing and emotional intelligence, and Snoop was very vulnerable and apologetic about how he mishandled it, and the community was even more enraged at
Really?
his level of growth and the fact, and they're just like, why is he on this apology tour, why is he going off, and it's just like they couldn't even understand. That angered the public even more, and
That's
then of
crazy.
course now it becomes Jada and Gayle and all of these women is all all in cahoots, but that's a whole nother thing. But getting back to the emotional intelligence and with our black men, why is it that when our black men start to exhibit any level of growth or any level of maturity, that we ourselves we don't want to support them? It's
Well, I think there's two parts to that. I think the first part is the people who are outraged and who make the most noise are the ones who don't have it. Because like they
Absolutely.
say, empty barrels make the most noise, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like the emotionally mature people don't really have much to say. You know what I mean? Other than, well, it's good that you finally got to that point. But emotionally mature people don't really make a lot of noise, and there's not really a lot of fuss, or you know what I mean? Like it's really not that dramatic because most of those people are really calm because they got a sense of self. It's all the other people who are still in that space where it's like they're just looking for outrage and looking for something to react to. You know what I mean? Like it's those are the people who would support anyone who's like, oh, why are you apologizing? Well, he's apologizing because he was wrong. Number one, like, I mean, I'm not saying he was wrong for feeling what he felt. I feel he was wrong for the words that came out of his mouth when he was talking about Gayle King. I don't think he should have ever used any of the words he used to describe her. That I think that was totally out of pocket. Like, and I think in hindsight, he realized after he had calmed down, because you got to remember too, at that moment, he was still getting over the loss of Kobe. So it's raw emotion,
correct.
So I think a lot of people who were supporting him doing that, I mean, they're in the same place. They're just reactive.
And I want to get back to Malcolm. So now when Malcolm is in that acting out, just being emotional and responding that way, how come at this point? Well, I guess Elijah Muhammad attempted to, impart, wisdom and elder wisdom when he tried to silence him and use other
Well,
measures.
that was the second step.
Right.
The first step was giving them the advice when they were still cool. Like, bro, just relax. It's okay. Don't say anything. We'll get past this and we'll get back to, the program. But he couldn't fight it. Like he just gave in. So then the next step was, all right, bro, I'm gonna give you this little 90 days, just chill out, take it light. Don't say anything. And at first he was. Like, I think he went to Florida first, something like that. And he was hanging out down there for a couple weeks. But, at that time, he had so much energy that he wanted to do something. He wanted to, you know what I mean? And then when he said something, it was just like, man. And I think he knew, too, that at that point, that he was just being excommunicated, period. Like, there was no coming back.
So how does it go from, okay, we need to calm him down to now this brother gotta die? How does it get from there? I mean you're not a member of Nation of Islam,
and
obviously.
I'm not a murderer for the record.
I'm just saying.
Let's point that out. I do not support murder at all.
We're just having a conversation.
Saying. I think
because we've also had the conversation before where I told you, and in general, and not just in here, but even in relationships, it's like when a black man feels betrayed, somebody has to die. And sometimes it's like a lot of times it may be black women in relationships with a black man. It's like when it's like they don't know how to respond any other way. It's just like, okay, I'm in my feelings right now. I don't know what else to do. So you know what? Somebody got to die because I'm not dealing with these.
Well, let me deal with the first question first. Now, I believe Elijah Muhammad looked at Malcolm as a key player in the grand scheme of things, but he knew the grand scheme of things. I don't think Malcolm X understood the game on the level Elijah Muhammad did. I believe that Elijah Muhammad looked at it like, listen, let's capitalize on the situation. Let's capitalize on the timing. Let's capitalize on the fact that the Nation of Islam is growing in leaps and bounds. Like, other black men are joining us and we're training and, we're getting to where we need to be. So he was looking at it from I'm not willing to invest in this particular battle because I'm trying to win the war.
Right.
I'm not trying to win this battle in particular. Malcolm seen it as a soldier. Like, Elijah, you've been saying for years now that it's by any means necessary, right? So this is our opportunity to, and now I'm talking about not the Kennedy assassination, but about his brother that got murdered in Cali. He was looking at that like, well, you've been talking all this talk. Like, it's time for action now. Let's get to it. And Elijah Muhammad's like, nah, bro, like, this ain't the time at all, And Malcolm couldn't see that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have the knowledge of the game to understand that you can't just knuckle up every time. Like, sometimes it takes you seeing the person you got beef with and just walking past them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you want to get them, now ain't the time to get them because you could lose too. And I think Malcolm had too much of that testosterone type energy where he wasn't thinking about tomorrow. He's just thinking about now. Like, let's do what we're going to do now because I'm angry now and I'm pissed off now and we got the people to do it. Let's just go get it. And wherever the chips fall, they fall. And Elijah Muhammad seen him as, at that point, like, you're a soldier, you're my best soldier, but you're still a soldier and we're still at war. So we got to win this war. And I think where it changed was for Elijah Muhammad when Malcolm started making those comments about him impregnating the young ladies.
But that was the last ditch effort of a desperate man, it seemed like.
I agree. But how Elijah Muhammad saw that was like, I literally saved your life, bro. Like, I took you from the muck and mire. So now you come to a certain point. Now all of a sudden, like, you turn on me like that nationally. Like, this is what you're telling people. But it is my dirty laundry. But it's not for you to air it. Not you. if anybody else said anything, fine. But
this is
you,
after his house has been bombed and all of these
I,
things.
I believe
At
that's
this point now, it's just like,
it's
no
whatever
mercy.
now.
Yeah, it's
Right.
no mercy now.
Right.
You've bombed the house with my kids in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not. You don't get mercy at this point. So
And I think, but see, even with that, because think about it, that whole time he was still living for free in the house, right? Like before it got bombed and before the comments, right? You as Malcolm X, you don't have a means to support you and your family. The nation is still supporting you. You take a stance now that jeopardizes everything, including your family. So now when they take the house away, you're literally homeless.
yeah.
And didn't have any. In the documentary, it said something like, yeah, $250,
No, less than 150.
something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Less
To
than
his
150.
name.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in total. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
So not only did he didn't even have a plan B, and clearly his thoughts and his methods weren't really thought out, because you got to say to yourself, if I'm gonna take a stance against somebody who's supporting me, literally supporting me, like I live in this man's house for free, wouldn't I then say, well, I'm gonna do some things to stack some bread because I know he's gonna take the house away. At least I'll be able to support my family. Say, okay, we're not gonna live in a house. We're gonna get this apartment and at least be able to provide in that way so that everything is cool.
But I guess when you are under the assumption that you're going to be taken care of, because if you're looking at Elijah Muhammad as your father figure, I guess,
Like you said, there's no mercy now. So
Yeah.
both sides are looking that way. So for you got to say, how does this affect me and mine?
Yeah.
So you can't just randomly be talking crazy. And then when the dude says, he didn't even really, well, he did bomb his house, but outside of that, he didn't really do other things from the documentary standpoint to make Malcolm's life difficult. All he did was just take the house away. And that was all that leveled him flat.
That's all he did?
Well, not all. Like I said, he tried to kill him, literally. And then ultimately did kill him.
Okay, so
But-
so you believe that Elijah Muhammad ordered the hit? Because I know some people still believe that the hit was ordered by, the CIA.
No, I think the CIA and other entities were also out to get him. It's just that the nation struck first. Because when you look in that same documentary at the FBI footage, sidebar, what really pissed me off also, because that was your first question, right? The things I took away from it.
Yeah.
When they said that they had 10 informants planted in the room, not in total, just in the room when he got killed, that's insane to me. Like, they infiltrated that organization so easily. And why are we as people so easily infiltrated? To where, like, one of the
Exactly.
greatest leaders in American history can so easily be compromised. I mean,
But you when they spoke to one of them, the one that actually gave him a mouth to mouth, I forget the brother's
the
name.
dude that was an officer, but see, he wasn't an informant. He was a plant. I'm not talking about the dudes that are working for the FBI. I'm talking about the regular brothers that you see who are a member of the mosque, who's giving information to the FBI. They don't necessarily work for them, but they give them information. So I don't know what the exchange was for, if it was for money or if it was for dropping a charge they had. Because, like, it can go however way.
Right.
But outside of the guy who was the actual officer, who was a plant, kind of like a Donnie Brasco, who you couldn't believe, like, yo, this dude's a cop. Outside of him, they had 10. Am I right, bro? Was it 10?
9. Yeah,
Yeah.
9. I think you said 9.
I thought it was
Yeah.
10, but either way, to me that's incredible.
But you don't. Why is that incredible? Because we will sell out each other. You know what I mean?
But isn't that what the purpose of the organization is?
Yeah. But then
So then what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, what is the purpose then?
But then at that, a lot of the members of the Nation of Islam were guys who were formerly incarcerated. So now it's like I mean, they don't really have much integrity when you come to think about it, and
Right.
that's why so many things was able to happen. The way they allowed these innocent men to go to jail is because these weren't men of integrity to begin with. Do you think that's
fair, but I just assumed, which I shouldn't have, that, you know, since they come from that place and they're now in a new level of enlightenment, and they're being led by someone who has the vision, it's like they're coming into something new where they're putting a lot of the stuff they were doing behind, including the crime, including their lifestyle. And now they were living a different, better, more fruitful life. So I assume that the mentality also would change, not just the actions of, being a street dude. But that really kind of made me think like, wow, even in a movement like that, that's probably outside of the Black Panthers, I can't really think of another Black movement that was so like profound. And even within that, you got, again, they didn't say 10 in total. They said 10 that was there.
That was one of the most disappointing aspects, when you see that mentality never left. So it was when you think that they were supposed to be more disciplined, their paramilitary training, the way everything, they changed their whole lifestyles and diets, everything. You think that these men would have a level of discipline that was, that was stellar, but they were just
that threw me for a loop. That was something that stood out to me. Like when I saw that part, I was like, wow. So that let me know, like, Malcolm himself was doomed. So even if he didn't die that night, he didn't really have a chance, and that goes back to what I was saying before, like how his whole physical, like everything, like his whole vibe changed.
Yeah.
His body language changed.
Because he knew he was defeated.
Yeah.
And, and it almost reminded me of when, right before rappers get killed, and they always say that they know it's coming, and they always have that sense that their time is limited. And they said the same thing, with Malcolm. He knew when, when he was coming to his last days. And it's just so unfortunate that amongst our brothers, it's just like when they start to get to a certain level, it's like the hood or the community, we just don't want to see our brothers grow. And is really, really disappointing, where it's like, they said, Malcolm, wanted the spotlight, and, he liked the camera too much. And that was one of his problems. And the jealousy with Elijah Muhammad's son, but Junior, and everybody. There's so much envy and jealousy, and we just can't say, "Yo, we're proud of that brother," and just watch them blossom and watch them grow. And then, like I said, with the same thing with Snoop, when he's apologizing because he's realizing that he mishandled the situation. The community turned on him, and they didn't turn on him, but they expressed, they were really angered and outraged that, because they want him to be that disrespectful Snoop that that they've grown accustomed to. So when a brother starts to change and grow and get to a certain point, why is that an issue? Like, why?
I think that's just life. I don't think there's ever in any situation a totally positive kind of situation where everybody's happy for you and everybody's like, yeah, go ahead, bro, do your thing. Like, that's never the case. Like, ever.
Yeah, that's the crabs in the barrel mentality. Why?
Yeah, but I don't think it's like that for anybody. I don't think if you looked at, let's say it's a white person or some other ethnicity, I don't think they have 100% total support of whoever they're...
Well, I wouldn't say 100% support. However, you know what I mean? We need more support. We need to be more supportive of each other. than we actually are,
I agree with
more
that.
than anybody else.
That is a total fact.
So why? What is the struggle?
Because of what you just said. We need it because we're in a situation already,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of guys who would see, rest in peace, Pop Smoke, by the way, but where we would see another person who, when we look at them, we're like, oh, he's regular like me, but he's getting to it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of dudes within themselves can't feel that sense of like, yo, well, right now I'm not getting to it, but at least somebody who looks like me is getting to it. So, God bless them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of dudes, instead of thinking that thought, they think the opposite. We're just like, yo, this dude's a bozo. He can't even rap. He just got a different voice. How's he getting to millions? Like, dudes think like that. Like, for real. Meanwhile, I'm in my crib, like the mad rapper on that Diddy skit.
Uh-huh.
He's like, you know what I'm saying? This dude got chicks swimming in his living room, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
It's like, yeah,
that's
right.
how
Like,
people
like why?
think.
Like, why we are so hateful? And that was so.
Because you ain't got nothing.
That was so disappointing. And then the nonchalant attitude of the Nation of Islam, they were just so nonchalant and
About which part?
about everything, about what was happening, about who killed him, and the plot behind it. They were just very, very
Well, I mean,
nonchalant.
they can't really have a different stance, right? Like, you can't expect them to say, especially since Elijah Muhammad died, you can't expect because remember, that's also a generational thing. Like, these dudes are from a certain era.
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to speak out against their era to any other younger era. Like, they're not going to say, well, yeah, like, these dudes I grew up with scumbags for real, and this is what happened. Like, you can't expect that either. They have this thing, like older people have it. Even if they're dead wrong, they're not going to admit that to you.
Mm-hmm.
They might admit that among themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not going to say, Kimmy, XYZ. Nah.
But isn't that part of the responsibility of our elders is to say, you know what, we mishandled this in our generation.
Yeah.
So going forward, especially for the success of the Nation of Islam, that we should, just handle things differently now. So it's like now this docuseries came out. The truth is out there now. Everybody knows. So
I
it's
mean, the truth been out, actually.
but
I think,
it's in a more comprehensive way. So now
yeah.
everybody can see as clear as as day, because a lot of people still believe that it was the CIA that was behind it, and now we can see it was just like no, it wasn't. So.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing it's kind of sad, man. Because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, if you looked at it from a textbook perspective and you read who Malcolm X was, you get one sense of who he was, because they speak on him about his bravery and how strong he was, and those things are all true. But when you actually see like that last year of his life, that really kind of like made me feel like, man, like it's rough, you know.
And then you see where Salmage Hare, when he starts to do his interviews from prison, and he starts to open up, and he talks about the seed planting that Elijah Muhammad was doing to actually, indirectly call out the hit. Do you think that a lot of that still happens, like in our community, like we just plant seeds out there, and when we want to
Well, before I answer that, I think one other thing. See, it's one thing to plant a seed. It's another thing to mobilize people to go do a hit. And I think there's a disconnect there. I think people just assume that Elijah Muhammad, he planted the seed, so everybody's listening. So that seed now will sprout and grow into something just because he said, I'm planting the seed. But there had to be a coordinated effort to do it the way they did it. So there's more to it than just him planting a seed. My thing is, okay, I can agree that Elijah Muhammad had a lot to do with him dying. What I want to know is the steps that led to it. Was it just him planting a seed and then someone just standing up and saying, well, you know what? Our leader planted the seed. Here's what I'm going to do. Because what I also know is Elijah Muhammad is very methodical. So if he planted a seed and let's say Isaac jumps up and says, you know what? I'm going to grab 3 guys and we're going to go kill him. The Elijah Muhammad I read about would still like to know what's your plan on how you're going to kill him, because it also has to make sense to me. You can't just do it however.
But maybe they just didn't tell him. Maybe they just conspired, plotted amongst amongst them 5, and that was it. Because that's pretty much what
I don't see Elijah Muhammad being the leader of.
No. He didn't. He planted the seed. Also, with Junior was saying that with the comment that Junior made that his tongue should have been sent in an envelope to Chicago a long time ago. So once you're talking to your peoples, and then maybe they just wanted to look like the heroes. It's like, okay, they're planting the seeds, Junior, Elijah Muhammad. Now I'm gonna get me and my crew. We're gonna organize it amongst ourselves, and now we're gonna carry it out, and then we're gonna be
So you
the
don't
heroes.
think Elijah Muhammad cared how he got hit or anything? He's just like, as long as he's gone, I'm good.
Right. You know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I don't
you
see
know what
that.
I mean?
I think Elijah Muhammad is or was way more calculated than that.
But but in the wiretaps where he was saying that, the heads had to be cut off from the hypocrites, you know what I mean? So now he's making it clear that he wanted Malcolm gone.
Correct. And we agree right there.
Yeah. So now he may have had his ideas, but he's not going to tell, well, okay, this is the way I need you to do it. Doesn't matter. He's just planting a seed that this is what he wants done. So now they took it upon themselves to do it however they wanted to get it done.
I mean, just the thought that he wants them dead is an issue. So the how, I guess, doesn't really matter as much.
Right.
But
right.
for me,
Agreed.
it's sad that he didn't say something like, let's just, get him away from us. Like, let's just say he's no longer a member, so anything he says and does doesn't reflect the Nation of Islam. It's just literally, Malcolm X on his own. If he had said that, I mean, ain't really much there. Like, that would have been okay. Because you got to remember, too, towards the end, and that also comes from his brokenness, man. It was sad at the end, man. Like, my man went to Mecca, came back, and people think it's like he went over there and he had this religious experience and whatever. It was all based, to me, on his weakness at that time. Like, he was just trying to reach out for anything strong to hold on to. And when he saw what he saw, it made him feel like, damn, like, you know what? Maybe I'm tripping. Like, maybe I don't need to take this stance against this group of people or that group of people. Maybe I need to just be, inclusive and just get a hug from everybody.
But isn't that something where you have religions that can really just give you the boot?
I mean, yeah.
When you think about it, it's supposed to be about your connection to, to the divine, but then all of a sudden you do something, whatever it is that they deem that they can just tell you know what, you're no longer.
But I don't think they were telling him he couldn't be a Muslim anymore. They were more telling him he couldn't have a leadership role where he spoke to the nation anymore. Because he could have just been a Muslim and just, been a regular guy who works at a car dealership who prays 5 times a day, and he'd have been cool. They were just telling him, as a national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, that position is no longer offered to you. Like, you got to relax. You know what I mean? But that part too, the him going to Mecca, him taking a different approach, even with Martin Luther King. Like I remember that particular interview where he said, "I'm hopeful that Martin Luther King could forget about the things I said about him, and I'll forget the things he said about me, and we could just totally forget those things and move forward and do something else." Yeah, that's maturity and that's big, but it also shows you the place he was in. Like he to me was reaching out for any anything strong, whether it's like a branch or a twig, like just something to stop him from like sinking into quicksand. Like he was just looking around like, man, like there's really nobody around me to help me, and I need help right now. Like I don't have anything, like I'm not strong. And that also, I mean, you go from by any means necessary to, well, let's be a little more inclusive. Like within a couple months, it's like, bro.
Wow, but and the abandonment, and they didn't take care of Malcolm, and it even if they would have just said, okay, look, we'll pay you, just go away. You know what I mean? And just say, okay, we've had enough of you. You're doing too much. Here's some money. Go away. That would have been one approach. But it just seems like they weren't taking care of anybody. Even the guy, Butler, who took, who did 20 years, who wasn't even there. You know what I mean? It's like they didn't take care of him and his family or anything. That was also a very, very, disappointing aspect. You have these, men who served, up until the point where they could no longer serve, and it just didn't.
But that actually makes sense to me, because my thing is, if I'm gonna make you the fall guy, I don't care about you anyway. So why should I take care of your family? Like I don't care about you. So why should I care about them? Like y'all just don't matter to me. So it's consistent, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
But when you put it like that, you don't care. You know what I mean?
Right. Like that's the real.
That's
it's sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah,
like
it's indeed sad, and I think that's why there's so many people after watching it. They were just it takes you on this emotional roller coaster, and it's just hard. Like I know I couldn't sit there and watch all episodes all at once. It was just like there was some
I watched the
moments.
first two, then I got tired. If I watched it on a day I was off, I probably would have watched all six, but I watched the first two, then the next four. But
it was
the
like
whole time I was really watching him, because like I said, I knew the facts already. So that part and the actual, like I was telling you, the person who fired the shot to me doesn't really matter as much to me.
Yeah, I don't think that matters either.
Right. Like who actually fired the shot that took his life, like made him take his last breath, doesn't really matter. It's just about the entire conspiracy of it and how that whole thing works and all the key players. That CIA part is a big part too. And the informants is a big part. And the fact that so many different people and agencies were in tune, like they were paying attention.
Question. Do you think William Bradley is actually dead?
Do I think he's actually dead?
Yeah. I don't know. I just got the feeling that he wasn't. I just got the feeling that that he's being protected by the FBI, because remember, that's what one of the brothers was saying when he first got to Newark and started asking questions, and they was just like, leave that alone. The minute they called his name, and it was just like, that brother, he's probably being protected by the state. So now that, he comes around, he's digging and he's getting close. And just as he's about to get close, he gets the call saying that, Brother Bradley is gone. And it's just like, when you think about,
I don't know.
when you think about the history of this guy, and it's just like, it's possible they may have used him for, other things, and, and he's just in witness protection program.
Nah, I think.
Okay, just a question.
No, it's just, to me, when it comes to these agencies and when they use you for a purpose and they get what they want out of you, a lot of times they throw you to the wolves too, and they don't really care about you after that. I don't think at that point that they cared enough to say, oh, bro, it's getting hot, so come with us. Like, I don't think they care that much.
Okay, you think they, if anything, they're probably the ones that killed him?
I don't even have a thought on that. I didn't even
Okay.
I didn't even go because I never went down that rabbit hole you went down just now. In my mind, I never did. I just
Okay.
figured he died and he died, and that was it. Because I don't see them
Mm-hmm.
this far down the road now trying to protect them, because you got to remember that's generations ago. That's
Mm-hmm.
you know how many CIA directors ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
All
Like,
right. So you don't think that maybe they would still be using him because they still think that the Nation of Islam is very, very powerful in our community because of their, their structure. So maybe they still need people who's within.
yeah, but if that's the case and that's what they did, then how is he helping them now? Yeah,
That's
I don't buy
okay.
into all that. I mean, I
Okay.
just feel like the dude really he's a whole. There's a lot of hymns in the hood, by the way. We ain't gonna really talk about that right now.
What do you mean? There's a lot of guys who just.
Guys that'll do the bidding of someone else when really it has nothing to do with them, and the person could really be a genuine person doing genuine things, and they're just willing to either murder or steal or violate a person just because. And
What
they
what is that? What?
it's just there's a lot of grimy dirty dudes out here
Why? What?
because they're empty. They don't have anything. They don't they're not tethered to anything that's alive.
Mm-hmm.
So to them, it doesn't matter. Like they're just willing to, like, you got your show, somebody will be willing to talk trash about your show, get your show shut down. And you'd be like, but why? I'm just trying to help people grow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really that simple. Like, why would you even have a negative thought? I'm just trying to do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just, they like to see the world burn, man.
But then,
That's really it.
and I can dig that. I can definitely dig that. But then when you think that when you join the Nation, then you become a different person. But some people, they're just beyond that. They're just.
I think a lot of people want to be down. You see that with gangs.
Uh-huh.
Whenever people see something that looks strong and they
Mm-hmm.
feel weak, they feel like they should join something. And in a way, it doesn't matter what they join. They just don't want to be alone,
Mm-hmm.
because it's harder when you're alone than when you're walking in a group. Because, like, say it's you're one of 10 dudes, and you see me and my boy, you be quick to want to fight or want to do whatever. But let it be 2-on-2, you gonna walk by.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes feel that strength in numbers kind of thing, and it doesn't matter if it's necessarily positive. They just want to be down with something, and you saw that the decline in the Nation began at that point. Because think about it, if it was really that strong and that true, why wouldn't it have grown since then? Why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't the numbers increase even more?
Correct. Yeah.
You
That was
know, a
that's.
lot of guys, I think, in that moment, when they saw the police brutality and the
Mm-hmm.
conditions in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
they just wanted to be a part of something that was like great, and it looked strong. It looked like these, like when you saw the optics of it,
Mm-hmm.
these guys were paramilitary. Every time you saw like the images, they were either training
Mm-hmm.
or they were marching, but either way, they looked strong, and that was the image. So for other black men, they're like, "Yo, I should join that."
Yeah, it was beautiful to look at.
Hmm.
Absolutely beautiful. And then you look at these black men who seemingly were so disciplined and everything like that. It was amazing and it's beautiful.
Well,
Where is that now?
I have no idea. I don't. I don't. I don't really know like about the Nation now. I mean, I know a lot of people who are members, but
Well, not with the Nation. I'm just talking about for brothers now to give brothers structure.
I don't think it exists. Like right now in our communities, there's a big push for like religion to be that thing, like becoming or whatever. But there's no organization right now that a black boy would look at and say, I want to be that. Maybe the actual military, maybe.
Yeah, no. Okay.
I'm just saying, like,
no.
as an entity, I can't think of any one thing. Like, there's really nothing I could think of off the top where I'd say, like, oh yeah, the images are like this and like that, and you feel like you should go join.
Because our brothers are still joining gangs now, you know what I mean? And they're still, legacy members, and their kids is, becoming part of these gangs, and
Really? I didn't know that was a thing.
yeah. So now why
That's odd.
why is that an appeal?
Again,
Well,
it's the strength.
there's people of our generation that are gang members, and then you see, the younger ones as well. They're coming up.
Yeah, but how that came across to my ear was like, if say I'm Crip and then my son becomes Crip also.
Not by default, not necessarily. By
No,
default,
I'm not saying
but,
by default, but just period. To me, that's like just kind of weird.
Why? Why is that kind of weird?
I don't know. I don't think that should be a generational thing. Like that's really kind of messed up if that is the case. You know what I mean? Because you got to think about what a person's going through at that point to want to join a gang first. Then when you get to a point where you know what you've been through, I'm not talking about what you tell people on TV or what you tell people in the streets, because you still got to keep that I'm a Crip mentality around, because that's what you are. But you also know the bad side of being a Crip. You'd also know that like 10 of your homeboys are either dead or in jail. And there's only really like you and 2 other dudes who actually made it to a point where you got a job and you got a family.
But you do notice that a lot of them, when they speak about their glory days, they speak with pride.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? So, and that was another thing that I noticed in the documentary when he was in the I guess it was like a diner or whatever. It's like they speak.
Who, the old guy?
Yeah, they speak with that. And then the one that you sent me the other podcast with Professor James Small, where he was talking about going through Harlem, and he was dropping some names, and it was just like of all these old, and it was just like, and then you see they get all glazed over, and they speak of those and how Harlem heyday and the gangsters that was rolling around there, and
it's called low self-esteem.
Yeah,
man.
it's like, why do they speak about those times with pride?
Because it's like, again, a lot of dudes can't get to it unless they're in a gang. They can't shine unless they're in a gang. They can't get to money like that unless they're in a gang. They don't have that positive feeling about themselves unless they're with other dudes who are doing the same thing. A lot of dudes can't stand on their own too and say, well, today I'm going out there and I'm getting this and I'm coming back and that's that. And then tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing again. Some dudes got to call their homeboy and be like, yo, what are we doing today? Like, they don't know any other way. So a lot of dudes are just like that. And you're right. I see a lot of dudes who, when they're talking about things that are worthless, they speak with such confidence and they're so excited. And I'm like, bro, what? Like,
but if that's how they're speaking about, those days, and then of course now when you have your sons, this is what they're coming up, and this is what they're gonna emulate because this is what you're proud of. I mean, we also see it with the we're in the Sound Clash community when they speak of the Badman era back in the late 80s. It's like
excited.
Yeah, they just get really, really excited about criminal activity.
But the funny part is they don't tell you the negative side. They don't tell you that they had to do a 3-year bid and they got cut, and you know what I mean? In that 3 years, they baby moms moved on and they came home heartbroken, and they don't tell you all that.
And the ones that got deported and all of this stuff like that. And those are the heroes, the one that got deported after doing all the time, and but then their sons come up and then they wind up doing the exact same thing. So the ones that was, their fathers was, in that bad man era and all, and And when Harlem was in their heyday, those are the ones who's now in the gangs now, and their sons is
But
now.
we glorify that though.
Why?
On both
Why
sides.
are we at this in 20 still glorifying that?
Even the women in our communities, they give a lot of attention to those same dudes. Those are the dudes they want. So it's both sides. It's the males wanting to emulate what they see, and it's the women who see that and feel like, oh yeah, I could get with him. So on both sides, like it even though it's a negative that should be viewed as a negative, in our communities we see it as being like, oh yeah, that's kind of dope.
Well, this was a very, very interesting topic, and and a very good conversation that we had. So we're gonna have to wrap this up. Thank you for talking to me, Kent.
No worries.
And this is Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and I am signing out from SoulShare. Good night.